Hello, my name is Naive Libertarian Politics, and today we'll be doing an episode or a video about the Southern strategy, which is, in my opinion, the big electoral lie of the 20th and 21st century. It is the belief that after sometime in the 60s, the Democrats and Republicans switched parties, and well, it's actually the Southern strategy is an argument, but it's an argument for the party switch, which is this argument by the Democrats to say in the 1960s the Democrats and Republicans basically switched sides, and the Democrats became the anti-racists and the Republicans became the racists, which is I mean, on off the bat until it's wrong, but you know uh, it's widely believed. It's even on Wikipedia. You can see here, Southern strategy. Uh, so we're gonna start. So yeah, so we have the fifth party system and sixth party system web pages because this is really where how long you could see this in strategy goes, and this is how far we're gonna go in the video. And yeah, so we're gonna get to the first thing. So this is the 1964 election between Barry Goldwater and Lyndon Johnson. This is the first election where you could see the Southern strategy being used. You can see that Barry Goldwater won the South in his home state of Arizona, but you can really see that the reason this happened is, if you take a look at it, it's really much of an oddity, because Barry Goldwater, he was a very hardline conservative and voted against the Civil Rights Act, not because he was some kind of racist, but because he believed it would infringe on the rights of businesses to refuse service to anybody for any reason, which, in my opinion, or at least in the libertarian philosophy, is fair. It's freedom of association, and Barry Goldwater lost to Lyndon Johnson, who also was a Southerner, but was a Texas Southerner, so was able to win the non-deep South. And he also had signed the Civil Rights Act, so he was going to get all the black vote and the Northern vote, of course. But you can see that this didn't cement the Democrats would win the North forever, and because in 1968, Richard Nixon ran, and he did not win the Deep South. He did not win much of the South at all. In fact, Texas went to Humphrey. Really, the only states that he won were outer Southern states, but the one Deep South state of South Carolina, but that's not really much. And you can see that George Wallace won most of the South, and you can see that George Wallace won most of the South because he was a Democrat. He was a racist Democrat, and he ran as his new party because he was not a fan. He wanted to get rid of desegregation, and he thought that neither of them would do it. Well, neither of them would have done it, but so he ran his own parties, and all the Southern Democrats voted for him, which is just proof that the Democrats were winning because George Wallace was a Democrat. So 1972, Nixon McGovern. Nixon won the South, but he also won every single state except Massachusetts and the Federal District of D.C., so it's not much of an argument to be made there. And 1976, Gerald Ford versus Carter. You can see that Carter won every single southern state except, you could say, Oklahoma and Virginia. There's not a lot to say here. Democrats won the South. You've been proved wrong once again. This is 1980. This is 1980. Reagan Carter. You can see here that Reagan won almost every state, most of the South, but he obviously didn't do very well in the South, seeing that Jimmy Carter won a southern state. It was a landslide victory, but it was a landslide victory. But Carter did better in the South. He won two southern states in the form of West Virginia and Georgia. 1984 comes around, and Reagan wins every state except Minnesota. So yeah, it's and the Federal District of D.C. But that's really all he he wins the South, but he also wins every other state except Minnesota and the Federal District of D.C. So 1988. George, this is really the best place where you could say party switch happened, because George Bush did win predominantly the South. Dukakis only won the southern state of West Virginia, which was very southern, was very Democrat for a while. You can see here that the Democrats only won northern states, except Federal District of D.C., if you want to consider that southern, well, it's not a state, and also West Virginia. But this was because he was from the north, and of course, George Bush just did fairly well. You can see that Minnesota and Wisconsin are Democrat in the system. They've been pretty Democrat, and same with these two states. They've been Democrat. And also New York, Massachusetts, they are just Democrat. And West Virginia is just a little bit of an oddity, and Hawaii didn't go. Hawaii's been a pretty safe Democrat state, and D.C. has never gone Republican in its entire existence. So 1992, George H.W. Bush loses to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton does pretty well in the South. George Bush does too, but that's because they're both Southerners, so of course it's gonna be a little bit of a battle for the South. But he did do pretty well in the South. He lost a few deep South states, but he also won a few, so it could go either way. And 1996 comes around. Bob Dole, Bill Clinton. Bob Dole does win the South, but Bill Clinton, he wins a little bit of the South too. This is another one of those oddities. Of course, this would lead on to the first election where a Republican would win based upon the South, with George Bush winning by 2 electors. Well, really more like 3 electors. He wins by 3 electors, which he beats Al Gore by 3 votes, 3 electoral votes, and he does win the South predominantly. Actually wins the entire South, unless you want to consider Maryland and Delaware the South, and D.C., but, no. Also, D.C. elector did not vote for no real reason, but George W. Bush was the first time, and he won it predominantly. You can see he also in 2004 he won the South again, but really he won the South based off his compassionate conservatism and his Christian beliefs. The South has always been very Christian. They've always been very Christian, and in recent years they've become kind of neoconish. I think they're less neocon. I think most Southerners want to get the soldiers out of the Middle East. I think most Southerners are compassionate conservatives. They're just, if you know what that is, they're compassionate conservatives, and that's why they like people like Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham. They're neocon-ish. They like neocons. They're neocon states, but that also gives off the effect that they're compassionate conservatives, which is something which is kind of the opposite of the populist nationalist conservatives that we see in Donald Trump's party. Yeah. So what you need to take away from this video is that the Southern strategy did not really happen until 2000 or 1996, really, with George Bush, and he only started winning the South off Christian ideals and his compassionate conservatism, which it's closer to libertarianism than what Trump has, or you could say it's his more liberal economics. We can see in my history of Republican videos, probably more like Thomas Dewey than Robert Taft, you could say, which yeah, he went off compassionate conservatism. The South is pretty compassionate conservative. Yeah. So this is just my opinion. As always, just my opinion. My name is Naive Libertarian Politics. Take everything with a grain of salt. Expect another video tomorrow. I've been trying to make videos every day. Sorry I had to re-record this video. There was some audio issues. And if there's audio issues again in this video, I'll make sure to re-record it again. Yeah. So, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.